No, I agree with that analysis. B minus
Rufus
seems
asks a very good question, which is how good would this creature be if it were a 2/1 flying? If it were a 2/1 flying in red
for two.
for two
No
mana,
drawbacks.
no drawbacks, this would be a
This is
B.
pretty very strong. Yeah.
Solid B. Maybe a B plus. Maybe not that
Um,
high. But like
I
this is
mean,
one of the best two drops you can possibly find.
yeah, I think that's very good. That's a good point. Because that's basically
Also,
in
remember
the flying
sometimes
deck.
menace is better than flying. Not usually, but sometimes it is.
Yeah,
Um,
especially because like you mentioned, a lot of combat tricks.
yep.
So the fact that you can make this in a combat scenario get a lot of value if your combat trick resolves is really relevant.
Right.
So
It's possible I'm rating this a little too high, but I think that cards like this that fill the curve very efficiently and reliably get in 4 or more points of damage, and then through it just being annoying and on the field causes more damage to get through, I think these cards are going to be good.
the only problem is if there are too many 3 toughness creatures, where they're just lying
Yeah.
around on the field. That's the one problem. And
Eventually that becomes a problem for this card, but that's not going to happen until turn 4 or 5, usually.
yeah, I can see that being true. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So let's keep going.
Yeah.
Distemper of the Blood. I thought it was Brood first, but it is Blood.
No, so there's vampire.
That must be my Japanese Brood coming out. Anyways, 1 in a red for a sorcery. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains trample until end of turn. Sorcery?
The fact that sorcery means it's significantly worse as a combat trick, obviously. You'll only be casting this for face value. But it does have madness, which means that you can, in fact,
It
get
does
rid of
have madness. So this card is awful if you don't have madness, or if you don't have discard outlets. And those discard outlets have to be worth it.
Right.
So
if you're using this with wild mongrel or sorry, Muse Constrictor in green, that becomes pretty solid. I mean, it's not great. It's okay. I definitely don't want many of these.
I'm calling it a build around C.
I don't even know if I call it
maybe not even a C.
It's a filler. It's a filler in the build around deck.
Yeah, it's filler. Yeah, fair. It's filler in the build around deck. So let's call it a build around D. Only playable in madness decks.
Right.
Womp womp.
But I mean, obviously, if you're a madness deck, you're just happy to pick this up, and if you need another madness card, you can just run this, and it'll be fine. If you're also kind of aggressive-ish, so I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't want to play it.
Hang on, I'm correcting a small typo. There we go. All right, next card, Falconwrath Reaver, 1 and a red for a 2/2 vampire. Holy shit, red got a vanilla 2/2.
Yeah.
Is that the first time ever? I think it might be.
For a 2-mana 2/2.
Are there any other vanilla 2-mana 2/2s in red?
I mean, historically, that was a gray oversize, right? So this is more aggressively costed than it would have been historically, so it would have been in recent memory.
I mean, we do get things like Scourge Wolf, which, those are 2-mana red creatures with upside.
Right.
But I don't think red has ever gotten a 2-mana 2/2 at common vanilla. I think that's the first time.
I think you're right. How relevant is the vampire type line?
It's okay. I mean, the thing about this card is that vampire decks are going to need good 2-drops, and this was the difference between a great vampire deck in Shadows and a very mediocre bad vampire deck in Shadows, was how many 2-drops do you have and what's their quality. This is not a very high quality 2-drop, but
it's not Era Falconwrath, let's be honest.
No, it's not Era Falconwrath, so it's very far from a B. But it's probably like a C. I think that 2/2s for 2 are underrated these days. People are used to getting shiny toys and don't realize how few good 2-drops there are.
I think that the reason 2/2s for 2 are underrated, of course, is because 2-drops were kind of at their low in the last couple sets.
True. Yeah.
Which so people get used to that concept.
It's true, but I think in red, if you're maybe this is like a C-. I don't know.
Even in red, I think I agree that it should be probably closer to C- because the fact that we are seeing that 2 power is kind of not as good as it would be in other sets, and the 2-drop slot is very important, so you do still want it, but you aren't going to be super ecstatic that you're playing a lot of these, and I wouldn't even call it a good I have this card.
Yeah, I think I agree with C-. You're not, even in a black red vampires deck, you're probably not super excited to have this. Mm-hmm. So I feel it's challenging to justify it anything higher than a C, and I'm not sure it is deserving of C.
So, there's a common you're probably gonna be able to pick a couple of these up because
you're gonna be able to pick this probably 8th or 9th pick.
Yeah.
Without too much trouble. Fury Blade Vampire, 1 and a red for a 1/2 trample. It isn't uncommon though, so there's probably more text. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may discard a card. If you do, this gets +3/+0 until end of turn, so it becomes a 4/2 trampler.
I'm pretty interested in this card actually because it is a madness enabler that does a lot of damage.
It is specifically only at the beginning of combat though.
Right. So
which is a little rough because, well, for a few reasons. One, like if you're trying to, I don't know, if you're trying to madness out a senseless rage on it or something, it could get tapped down by a blue deck, or your opponent can kill it.
Tricks. You can't use combat tricks with Fury Blade Vampire. That is definitely true. Like you can just if you're doing this aggressively on turn 3, maybe it's fine just because like you want to get in like 8 damage on turn 3. That could just be your point. Like I'm just going to go in and just swing with this because I can't block it anyway. The fact that it's trample is definitely relevant. I think that trample is definitely the kind of selling point on this because
if you get +1/+1 counters on it somehow, that's even better. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure where to rate this. Like this is pretty deck specific. In some ways, like you don't want to be playing this in red green.
Yeah, you
probably.
Don't want it.
Don't want it in. You probably want it in red. You definitely want it in red black. Red blue probably doesn't want this though.
Probably not. Because it is just it's not going to do
like I mean, I think red blue would play it, and I think red green might play it too, but they wouldn't be happy to play it.
I think this is just one of the cards that just helps you enable your madness cards just for a little bit of extra value. And I think that makes it a relevant card. It's like a card. I'm going to be having this in my madness decks. I'm playing it as many as I can. Yeah. I don't think I want 4 of these. Yeah. I think it's probably built around.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably like a C+ overall though, because I think if you're in red, there's about a 50-50 chance that you're gonna really want this. So yeah, I think it's fine. Let's keep going. We're spending a lot more time talking about these than usual.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's good. It's good. Galvanic Bombardment. It's 1 red for an instant. It deals X damage to target creature where X is 2+, and even before the plus, I'm in.
Yes.
I'm taking it straight out.
2 damage for 1.
Even if you have only 1 Galvanic Bombardment in your deck, you're gonna take this.
Yes.
Which is kind of sad because it means you're not gonna often get more than 1 of these.
Yes, probably true. I mean, it's a common.
It is a common, but on average, you're gonna open like maybe 2.5 of these in a draft.
Yes.
That tends to be the case. Where commons, you only open around 2.5 of them on average. I actually did the math on this for Fairy Miscreant in Origins, where you only on average find 2.5 in an average draft. And given that this is a small set, that still holds mostly true because there's less commons.
If we just look at this as a 1-mana, it's just shock. If we just look at it as a shock, I'm pretty happy with it. Obviously, like we said, 3 top.
Play Vinyl says in draft you need to. You do not need to make this good in draft.
It's a shock.
This is a shock. Shock in draft almost never goes to the face. This is very, very good in draft. Like, you would take shock probably 5th pick on average, right? Maybe 4th or 5th pick. Maybe better. I mean, it depends on the set. It definitely depends on the set. But, like, on average, I'd say shock usually goes around 5th pick. This is better than shock in limited, probably. Considering that if you have more than 1, you get even more value out of it.
Yes. I mean, obviously,
I don't know, actually.
After you pick the first one, the second one just is lightning bolt, and you straight take it.
Right.
But, like, it depends on how likely people are to, like, what is the average toughness of creatures, right? I don't actually have that number.
There are a lot of 3/2s, but there's also a fair amount of 2/3s. So, it'll be a really good card against half of everyone's deck, basically.
And the fact that when like in combat, it's just going to get an extra damage through if you have trample creatures or something like that. There are definitely ways you can get value out of this besides just I have to kill a two toughness guy, right? It is a combat trick also.
Shocks are first pick. Well, I definitely agree, Moto Grinder. But I would say that in average pack in almost any set that contains a shock, you're probably not first picking the shock. Probably.
Yeah, it really does.
I'm not saying that I would never pick shock first pick, but I wouldn't be happy first picking this probably.
There are definitely a lot of sets where you're just happy to take your first pick shock because it's very flexible. The fact that this is so flexible means you are likely to take this very early because it leaves you open, and it lets you, like, if you pick up another 2 of these, you're very, very happy. So I do think that you want to take this pretty early, but I don't think that this is definitely like a reason to be in the color, right? So I definitely would say this like a B. Like, you would splash this.
Aiden says there's not a lot of 3/2s. I actually think there's a fair amount of 3/2s. Like the most common token, because there's a lot of Eldrazi tokens that are 3/2s. So maybe I'm a little biased because I've already gone through blue and black, but there are a lot of 2 toughness.
Aiden was agreeing with you. He's saying, isn't there a lot of 3/2s?
Oh, I see. I
Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just taking issue with what Play Vinyl said, where he said something like, "You need more than one." No, you don't need more than one for this to be good. You just need one for this to be very good. And if you have more than one, you're feeling really happy about your draft.
I agree. You definitely don't need to have.
Like, I would play 5 of these.
Oh yeah.
maybe that's crazy. I don't know, but I would probably play 5 of these.
5 of these, you don't need other removal spells.
No,
which is
you
unfortunate
don't.
because the fact that after that you probably have already drafted other removal spells before you got the 5th one of these. But
details.
you are definitely happy to have all 5 removal spells being this guy.
Yeah.
Because it is just a removal spell, so it is. It's not like the 5th one goes to the face and deals 7 damage, right?
Yep. Also worth remembering, the more of these you have, the more the first strike combat tricks get better.
Yeah.
Obviously not a lot better, but they do get a little better.
And so trample becomes better as well. So I do think that this is a solid B. Yeah. I wouldn't go as far as B+, but it's solid.
I think it's a B- to B, because it won't, like, at the end of the day, I would rather have things like murder, things like more non-conditional removal. Like, this is very conditional removal.
The reason I think,
but it's efficient. It is really good. Not only is it
efficient, but it's also very easy to splash. So if you want to say,
I wouldn't be happy splashing a shock in most limited decks.
You wouldn't be happy to, but if you have the mana for it, you would do it. And I think that is like, I mean,
maybe if I had other cards I was splashing, I would, but I don't think I'd splash red for 1 bombardment most of the time.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not for the 1.
Yeah. Maybe if I had 2, I'd consider it. But even then, like, maybe this is just my bias, but I really dislike playing 3 or more colors unless there's a lot of support for it in the format.
That's true. That's true.
Anyways, let's keep going. This is a good card. You should play it. All right, Handweird Garrison. Oh boy, this is a bomb. 2 in a red for a 2/3. Wait, this is a bomb?
Let's see.
Let's see here. What else does it say? It says, when it attacks, you put 2 1/1 red human creature tokens onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean,
so,
this is 2/3 that is actually a 4/3.
Hello, Brumaz. Basically, it's not quite as good as Brumaz, probably. I think Brumaz is better than this.
Yeah,
because he had vigilance and a bit more power and toughness and all that.
Yeah. The fact that it's red and easier to cast is definitely relevant.
That is relevant. It is also relevant that it dies to most removal.
Yes.
I don't know if I'd call this an A, because it will trade against a lot of 3-drops. Like, a lot of 3-drops have 3 power, or maybe you have some death touch creature or something, or maybe you have a 2-drop and a 3-drop that both are 2 2/2s and 2/3s. So this will trade with a lot of things.
I think that,
it leaves you to it leaves you 2 1/1s, and if your opponent has a really slow draw, this just takes over the game.
Right. Like, you don't just always have to swing with this in if you don't want to.
Yeah, exactly.
When you do, you might be like, okay, well, I'm attacking with this guy. 2 1/1s comes late, and like maybe I have maybe these guys are actually relevant because maybe it triggers some abilities.
Right.
I think it's definitely a solid A- up to A.
I think it's an A-. Yeah, I'm comfortable giving it an A-. A. I don't know. I'm pretty stingy with my A's.
Whatever rating you have Goblin Rabble Master at, I think that this is definitely going to be.
This is probably better than Rabble Master.
Yeah, I think this is favorable against Rabble Master.
Yeah.
Especially since it doesn't have drawbacks, always attacks.
Well, no, actually, Rabble Master might. Well, those are pretty close actually, because with the Rabble Master you didn't have to attack with him.
You didn't always have to attack with
this guy. You have to attack with him to get the value.
Yeah, if you aren't attacking with it, your 1/1s are probably not doing very much though. Because
this is just about the best 3-drop you can cast in the format, though.
I think so. Yeah.
So let's call it an A-. Very strong 3-drop. Worst case is a Witch's Familiar.
Of course, if you can build it, that's very interesting, and I think.
Oh man,
it's very great. But
okay, if you have this in your deck, do you start going overboard with enchantments to go all in?
Yeah.
Probably not. All right. there is one card in the format that has a drawback that you could donate to